Okay, we're starting off with 2 typo corrections. The first one is right there in our preview file. We need to get rid of that, or we need to add another parentheses to the end of it. Next one is use the wrong file here. My words are getting stuck. Okay. Why won't my source file come up here? It won't show it to me, so I'm gonna have to pause here for a second. Okay, so Microsoft rearranged my 2 desktops. It slammed everything over to my recording desktop, which is not what I wanted. Let's continue. Okay, so I had the add function there, and that is not what we wanted. We don't want to add mix fi to the face indexes. We want to add the value to the entire array. So that's what we have now. Let's get our process function into place. And I think I'll put another split between this video and the configuration of our model on the front end. I wanted to apologize for the audio. I'm just learning to experiment, or I'm just beginning to experiment with audio here. And I believe how far I had the microphone away from me, it just wasn't working out. So this one may be blasting or blaring. I don't know. Let's go ahead and do our process. Transform. First child. We want to get the first child from our primitives, which will be the parent child, the hip, so we can just unparent them. And that's actually important, that we don't have our source primitives under this project when we go to do the create avatar. Transform bones is equal to a new from our bones. That length, same thing. We need to get all of the matrices from everything we have so far, or from all of our primitives. Bone weight. That's really important. If the bone weights are really important if our model is welded together. This model is not welded together. It's separate sources. But we'll talk about that in just 1 minute. Get our tangents here. And just for an example, I am going to split off the right eye and the left eye into their own material on our final shader, on our final mesh renderer, skin mesh renderer, because I don't want to. I don't want them to use the same material. It would be better, of course, to use an atlas, but we don't. We're not dealing with modeling here. We're dealing with boning, skinning it. So let's get rid of our preview. If we create it, click the create preview button. We don't want to get the mesh filter in the children because we don't want to touch our primitives. If you mess up one of those primitives from Unity, it's messed up for the entire project. And since this is in destroy, since this is inside the editor, we want to use destroy immediate. So we just want to get the mesh renderer and the mesh filter from our top level object if it's not equal to null from a top level object, not from the children. Why am I destroying the game object up here? I'm going to mess up here. Okay. If the mesh filter is not equal to null, destroy the mesh filter. If the mesh renderer is not equal to null, destroy the mesh renderer. Because we're going to create a skinned mesh renderer. If you can't tell from my voice, I am from southeastern Texas. I can't say wash without putting an R on it, and I say running, not running. Comically called the Arkansas R in Texas. Entire story behind it. Okay. We don't wash our clothes, we go to war with them when we clean them. Shared materials is equal to, now this part is experimental. I'm headed at the bottom and I'm moving it, the shared materials, to the top. Come on. And so that's kind of, that might backfire on me when we get to it. Now normally you use the shared meshes and the shared material or shared materials in the editor, but for some reason Unity has material there instead of shared material in the examples. I'm going to go ahead and put it as shared material, but if something flops, we'll come back to it and change it. Alright, we are going to create a new mesh. Once again, declare a max FI. We need a bone index now. And we're going to need a bone DN for our anchor that is over here on our part. Tell it where to get it. So let's get back to it. For the int of the n is equal to 0, n is less than our bones. I haven't used bone names once, and IntelliSense keeps on trying to trick me. New game object. I have to create the whole game object, but we're going to just set this to the new game object's transform. Local rotation is equal to the quaternium identity. Local position is equal to our anchor. Our bind poses, don't be a poser, but we need some poses here. World to local matrix times our transform local to world matrix. So we're literally flipping our matrix on our bind pose. If our bones part is not null, same way as with the mesh renderer, we're still going to create the bone. Come on, mouse. Show up. I think Microsoft and Logitech are having a war of some sort because my mouse is acting crazy. Rotation. I think it's local scale, or is it lousy scale? It's lousy scale. Lossy scale. It's supposed to be lossy scale, but I'm calling it lousy scale. Alright, mesh filter. Let's get that source mesh filter just like before in our preview. we'll go ahead and hook all these up in the editor, and then we will go and get everything and put it into place in another video. No, do I tell you? Map 4.multiply. Come on. No, I won't. There we go. Weights. Okay, we're going to talk about weights as soon as I type this all in. New bone weight. Just add an empty bone weight. And now let's talk about it just in a second. You're going to have, if you want to use multiple bone weights, I'll explain it to you, but okay, let's take a look at that. Let me bring my model over here. My hardcore high definition model. Okay, so bone weights. There's a bone here. There's a bone here. In fact, let me show my gizmos. There is the anchor point of our bones. This shoulder is assigned to this bone, this upper arm is assigned to this bone, this lower arm is assigned to this bone, and the hand is assigned to this bone. Maybe I want the wrist of the hand, maybe the vertices are connected between the forearm and the hand, where they connect. They're not separate like in this case. Then I might want to assign, when I do the bone weights, there are other bone indexes, so I could know those. It's probably not going to be so dynamic as we are doing right now, but there's nothing wrong with that. This would be the other bone index, and then I would give both bones a percentage of how much control that bone has over this part of the mesh. So our hand could actually have 75% on the hand bone, but still have 25% on the forearm bone. That kind of makes it bend more naturally in some cases. So you would use both weight. You would use multiple weights here, and they would both be some percentage of it up to the edge up to 1. I believe you can go greater than 1, but it's just going to add them together and get what percentage they are, which seems like a waste. So, but we're not doing that because our guy is very blocky and a wooden robot basically. Okay. Now we're going to do our normals again. Add range. See, I'm going to my shared mesh. Our tangents, don't go on a tangent. Just add your tangents. UVs. We're just using our base UVs. We're not going to have multiple sets. Now, as I said before, I really want to split up my eyeballs. I don't want my eyes. Hold on, I've kind of gone nuts here. I've made a mistake in my source project that I'm glad never backfired on me. But I almost made it again. Bone name. If the bone name is equal to right eye, we're going to separate its mesh indexes into a sub mesh so we can put a different material on it. And it's just an example. It's not something, I mean, if you're going to use an atlas, use an atlas. pump up that max FI. So, yeah. So since all the vertices are on the same mesh, but we're separating submeshes, whatever this, the face indexes are still incremented in the same way. Now the left FI is almost exactly the same, except it's going to use left instead of right. Probably didn't need to say that. Ooh, look, I created a new word. All right, there we go. And then else, for everything else in our project, in our mesh, we'll go ahead and do the source mf.sharedmesh.triangles.cloneArray. Why didn't I call cloneArray clone? Because Microsoft uses clone and it helps me separate it. I won't get confused while I'm working. There's some experience from 30 years in IT for you. Don't confuse yourself. Confuse other people. Confuse your competition. But don't confuse yourself. And I want the parent equal to my transform. Our bones won't actually have a mesh on them, but we do want them parented correctly. HA part. So we're going back and trying to find its proper parent here. If I can spell. Okay, bone index. So we've set its parent, but we're trying to find, did it have another parent? Because we want the transforms to be affected by that. Well, alrighty. Array.index of no. System.array.index of, there we go, bones. Parent. Using just horrible generics code. Actually, Microsoft arrays are really good. This arrays class is actually really good. So don't be scared of using it, just don't abuse it. If possible, always initialize your array to a fixed size, unlike we're doing here, and simply fill in each spot. Like we are halfway doing here, we are doing it with this. In some cases, it would actually be good to go through, loop through the array and find out how many indexes there really are. I mean, how many vertices there are, initialize the vertices array to that, and then fill out each spot. But that's a little bit too in-depth for this course. I mean, it would take too long. That set active is equal to false. And now, oh, so this has got to still be where it was, which never bit me in the butt. So I might be editing my code a little bit here. Alright, so we have 2 eyeballs and then the main mesh. So our submesh count is going to be 3. Our mesh.vertices is equal to vertices. Our mesh.normals is equal to normals. Our mesh.UVs is equal to UVs. Our mesh.tangents is equal to tangents. set the triangles for our main mesh. That'll be submesh 0. Set the triangles for our right eye. Set the triangles for our left eye. Mesh.bone weights is equal to weights. Render.bones, the skin renderer, the skin renderer bones is equal to our bones that we've just defined. Our bind poses are equal to our bind poses. And we want to recalculate our bounds because this we won't be able to see it when we move our camera. It will actually disappear. Now, if set our skin renderer shared mesh equal to our mesh, and if that first child that we got is not null, set its parent. It'll be inactive now, but set its parent to null, because when we click create avatar, that will actually mess it up. Okay. If you missed any of that, go back through it. Like I said, I'm going to try to post this in the comments, but just use the pause button to slow me down. That's it. We're going now to the HA editor. The HA editor is a little bit more complex if I can find it in my source code over here. There it is. So we got to do a bunch of that same stuff we done before. Number one, to that Unity editor. What are we going to edit? We're going to edit our HA. And here is where we're going to do all of our bone moving, because we got to put them in the right position. I'm not going to do a control for everything in here, so I'm going to draw the default inspector. Let's see here. But I do need somewhere to put my buttons. Alright, let's go ahead and get those buttons in here. If GUI layout.button.get avatar bones. This is just a tell us about it. Tell us what bones we have. Now what bones do we need? I guess both of these should be print. Fetch all the parts that we have defined. We're about to define them. That's the tedious part. Have to pause here. Someone's at my door. Alrighty, grocery delivery. And of course there was ice cream. So I had to try out the ice cream first. I know one of these days they're going to deliver bad ice cream, and I'm going to catch them. I'm going to be diligent and catch them. So as soon as ice cream enters this house, I test it. Gotta do it. Alrighty. Create avatar. Oh, there is, as I said before, there's no error checking in this program. So if you click create avatar before you fetch the parts and process it, it's going to give you an error message or two. or 3 or 4. It probably will anyway. Okay, so here we go. We're going into our on-scene GUI. If we got show gizmos on, and if the bones are not null, then we want to loop through them. And we are going to we're going to use the handles, Unity's built-in handles, and it has a button function, which is kind of cool. We're going to put that at the anchor of our bone. Which we're using in our actual bones. Materium identity. No, what's going on here? Okay. I can't spell. And I want to give it a size, I think that's a 16th, and I'm going to make the selecting area just a little bit bigger. And then for the actual button, I need to tell it what I want to use for a button, and I'm going to use a spear. A little bitty spear. Now, I need to put a whole bunch of functions down here for that spear to do. First of all, I'm going to flip the selection of that bone so I can position it in the perfect place. Wrong one. Okay, I am getting my functions messed up here. And I will give you a little side tutorial on Unity menus in a moment. And I just want to flip it to the opposite of what it currently is. And we'll see a Unity gizmo to drag it. Now, here is my edit point function. We need to get our matrix. So we can position everything correctly if we move the parent around. Here we're going to use the local scale. We can use lossy scale. That's not a word in my opinion. There's no such word as lossy. No, as in handles. Position handle. Position handle will put the gizmo, the dragging gizmo, the translate gizmo in our scene. If the GUI changed, I'm actually going to do an undo record here before we change our point. And that way we can undo on this one. We're going to inverse and multiply our point, our resulting point. And now we're going to set it all to everything. Now, I guess I could just put the point up there, but I have a custom vector that I use in a lot of my coding, and that one I like to do it this way. Alright, I have to transform it back into my custom vector. We need one more function here, and it is called show menu. Who are we showing the menu for? What bone? We'll use the Unity generic menu, And in this case, we're only going to have one function under it. Flip select. Simply call it and put the n in as the data. This method only takes a object data as a possible value. It can have none there. It will validate, so if I get rid of the value right here, since this is requiring it, it will show us a red mark, but if I do that, it doesn't. But of course we're dead down there. You can pass in an array, but you just have to cast it as an object and cast it back into your array down here. It's a good method of boxing everything up. So if we clicked on our spear, we're going to show the menu. And if the bone happens to be selected, we'll edit it. Anchor. And that is our editor. Now we'll see it in play as we put our primitives into play in the next tutorial. Right here. So we actually will parent the hips to that. Make sure they both have no transform. They have the default transform. And I will see you in the next video. Please subscribe.